What's up, everybody? It's Village Kev Talks here with another video. I want to talk about, as a gay person, some things that I've had on my mind relating to the hashtag metoo movement. And the reason that it's specifically been on my mind the past few days is the R. Kelly docuseries. If you haven't heard about it, there's a docuseries that just came out. I just finished watching the whole thing last night. And R. Kelly is now kind of like the next guy on the chopping block after Harvey Weinstein, after Bill Cosby. He's the next guy that momentum is building, and this guy's world is going to collapse very soon, I think, based on all the things that have come out and just the insane number of young women who have come forward and said, you know, forget Harvey Weinstein, forget all these other guys. Like, it's bad enough for there to be harassment in the workplace and stuff and assault, but this is pedophilia. It's like a different level of hashtag Me Too and objectification of women and the whole thing. But as a gay person watching all this stuff, I've been thinking all of these victims have been women. Like, it's always the same story. It's an alpha male, powerful man, and oftentimes like a media mogul kind of guy or an icon, whatever, going after vulnerable women. And as a gay person, I've been thinking this happens to gay people too, but we're not really hearing much about it until Kevin Spacey. And although it's really disturbing, all of these situations are disturbing, I'm really glad that the Kevin Spacey thing came out, because I feel like people don't want to talk about this stuff in general. But I think with gay men, it's even more taboo to talk about it. I think society doesn't like, it's bad enough to think of like your daughter or your sister, something happening to them. But I think it really disturbs people to their core to think of a boy being molested, or because I think as a society, it's like there's such an importance placed on men being, you know, your manhood is your masculinity and your dominance as a man, right? Whereas a woman in society is thought to be naturally submissive. So I think in a weird way, people feel more comfortable talking about abuse and assault and rape if it's about a female victim than a male victim. There's something about a male victim of sexual harassment that I think, especially by a man, from a man to another man, that makes people cringe even more, that it's taboo. People don't want to talk about it. So the Kevin Spacey thing, watching this as a gay person, all this stuff coming out in the media over the past year or so, I was really glad that it came out and that this is something people are talking about. Like, it's not about gender. It's about power, right? It's not about male to female or the victim looks like this. It's about abuse of power and control and how fame and money and status can veil what is really going on behind closed doors and what is considered okay. So I've been thinking about that. That's my first point. And my second point is, you know, in watching all of this, I think we're now, those of us who've been watching this unfold in the media, are that much more acutely aware of little instances of hashtag Me Too happening all around us, whether it's in the workplace, you know, somebody making an inappropriate comment, whether it's a boss, a male boss who's, you know, top of the hierarchy, or just like Joe Schmo at the printer saying something to Becky. And so it made me think of something that just happened to me last week. Obviously, what I'm about to share is not at all on the level of what these women who are coming forward bravely are talking about. This is like a very minuscule thing compared to that, but it's just really interesting because I think it points to this discussion and how even on these tiny levels, it's like subconscious. Like, we're so used to it that we don't even question it. But now, because of all this stuff coming out, I'm more observant, and so I'm assuming other people are as well. So I want to share this story. Last weekend, or the weekend before, I went out to a bar, a gay bar, and I'm walking through the bar, and this guy from a few feet away gets my attention somehow. I guess he was like waving to me or something. I don't know who he is. And he does this gesture to me. As in, like, you need to be smiling. And I was kind of taken aback because total stranger, I don't know the guy, and I'm self-conscious by nature, so in the moment, I think, I'm like, oh, do I look really surly? Like, do I look really serious? Like, maybe he's right. Like, this is in a millisecond that all this is running in my head. And I keep walking because I don't know the guy, like, I don't owe you anything. And I just felt uncomfortable, and I thought, that person just told me what to do. I don't know who this person is. He's not paying my bills. He's not my man. He's not my parent. Like, I don't know who this guy is. And I'm starting to get, like, angry, thinking, like, I just allowed this person to get away with this. I didn't say anything in the moment. I didn't react. And I went home that night, like, pissed that this person had the audacity to communicate that message to me. And, you know, it's a stereotype. I've had a lot of female friends tell me that's something that happens to them in the workplace, that a man will tell them, like, why aren't you smiling? Like, you should smile more. And that, again, I think comes back to all this embedded objectification of, like, I feel the right to tell you how you should be presenting yourself. Like, you're here to be presented to me, as opposed to us just, like, coexisting and being responsible for our own identities and how we want to present ourselves, right? So it's interesting because I've heard so many women talk about that, the whole this guy told me to smile thing, but that's not the first time I've had a guy tell me that. And it hasn't always been a gay man, and yet I know that story. So again, I think it's not about gender, it's just about people who have it ingrained in them that they're not even questioning that it's inappropriate for them to tell somebody else that I think inherently they feel is submissive to them, or meaning I don't think that guy would have gestured that to me if I was like 6'5" and really brawny and muscular, and you know what I mean? Like, I don't think, and I've had a coworker say that to me as well, I don't think they would dare say that to somebody who felt more authoritative than them or more dominant. So I think there's an inherently like a power balance dynamic thing, but I think it's subconscious. I don't think they're even aware of what they're really saying in that moment. So anyway, I moved on, like, it's not a huge deal. And this past weekend, went to the same bar and the same exact guy, which I didn't realize in the moment that it was him, but as soon as he said it, you know, like Groundhog's Day, I realized it was the same guy. And this time I passed right by him and he patted me or whatever and was like, "You have beautiful eyes." And I said, "Thank you." And then he said, "But you should really work on smiling more." And that's the moment where I realized it was the exact same guy. And without missing a beat, I was like, this is my moment to lay into this guy. And I look at him dead in the eye and I say, "Don't tell people that." And he instantly kind of like backs off, like, oh, kind of like suddenly he's a victim. Like, oh, you know, like I said something crazy aggressive to him. And I said, and I keep going because I want to make sure I'm ingraining this in his head. And I said, "It's rude. Don't tell people what to do." And again, he kind of backs up like, "Oh, okay, sorry." Like suddenly he's a victim. And I walk away and I was so relieved that time I didn't let him get away with it. And it's interesting because if this whole Me Too stuff wasn't happening, I don't know if I would have stood up for myself in that moment. And again, I know that in the grand scheme of things, this is really not a big deal. This is some like loser at a bar who's drunk telling me how to behave. Like it's not, I didn't get abused or anything. But that moment for me was very telling and kind of like demonstrative of all this stuff that we've been viewing, because I think that was the point, right, of this whole movement. Like now we're not willing to just zip it and let this stuff slide. I think in the past I probably would have still let him say that and not thought about why that's inappropriate. I would have just rubbed me the wrong way, but I wouldn't have analyzed it. But in that moment, I knew where that mentality was coming from, and it's coming from a place of I feel entitled to controlling your image or whatever, or how you should behave, which is something that historically men often do to women. And I think, again, that a lot of gay men also do to other gay men. Whether it's Kevin Spacey or this Joe Schmo at the bar. So if nothing else, I'm actually grateful that now when these moments happen, a lot of us are more aware of what's happening, and it doesn't even feel like a personal attack. It's like, oh, you're part of the problem. You're part of this bigger conversation. The other thing that's shocking to me is like, with how much conversation there is now about all this, how does someone like that not know that he can't say that anymore? Like you can't. The tide has, the tide is now going the other way. Like you cannot get away with saying that kind of thing anymore. Anyway, so I just wanted to throw this out there, I guess, and see if other people, other gay men, relate to this and what their viewpoint is on, the whole Kevin Spacey thing and the representation of gay men as part of this movement. Because other than that, we haven't really heard much about gay men experiencing this, but that moment at the bar with this guy, even though it was like such a little moment compared to the much bigger conversation that all this is, I feel like that was so demonstrative of this whole discourse, this whole dialogue, which is about control and power and feeling entitled. It's really about entitlement, feeling entitled to do what you want or to say what you want to somebody because you see them in a way that's submissive to you. Let me know your thoughts. As always, catch you later.